Welcome to our weekly Mitzvah Shabbos program. I want to share with you a letter, a private letter, that Rabbi Mindel wrote to a person, an answer. He wrote to Rabbi Mindel, but somebody that criticized Lubavitch. So he asked Rabbi Mindel, he told him that he criticized, and he told him what? So he asked Rabbi Mindel to answer. Now, many times, people wrote to Rabbi Mindel, I have a lot of letters, not to the Rebbe, they wrote to him. He's a maskir, he writes books, he writes so much, he knew the Rebbe Shita more than the Hamoy Nam knows, because he worked with the Rebbe. So they wrote to him certain things they didn't want to write to the Rebbe. So they wrote to him. Many times, the Rebbe looked her over. I don't know about this letter. The Rebbe didn't probably looked over, but I know many times he did. So he wrote to him about somebody criticizing Lubavitch. By the way, throughout all the years, the Rebbe had many letters that questions about Lubavitch. Many. And maybe I'll use it sometime. The Rebbe's answers, I did not print it in the letter spirit. But this is a letter from Rabbi Mindel, and I think Shluchim or Bachal people should learn from this if they have any questions that, like this person asked about Lubavitch. This gives them material to know the answers. So I'm going just to tell you just a few lines, the few questions, I think 5 questions that the person wanted to know. Number 1, why do Chassidim show so much respect to the Rebbe? That's one question. Is the Rebbe rich from all the money he sent? Does the Rebbe perform miracles? Do Chassidim defy the Rebbe? And the last question is, why does the Rebbe use a Cadillac? The Rebbe went to the Ale. He used, or sometimes the Rebbe used a Cadillac years ago. Used this Cadillac. So the Rebbe only for that. The Rebbe had a driver. Rabbi Krinsky was the Rebbe's driver, and he used a Cadillac. So why a Cadillac? Okay. Now, even though officially Lubavitch policy was always not to pay attention to these scoffers, but sometimes a person writes because of ignorance, not because of jealousy, and that's why Rabbi Mindel answered. Otherwise, he wouldn't answer. I think it's because of ignorance he wrote. But anyway, this is also. Now, I do want to say, before I read to you Rabbi Mindel's answer, since the Alter Rebbe, the Baal HaTanya Shulchan Aruch, he was one of the greatest, he was the youngest Talmid of the Mezritcher Maggid. The Mezritcher Maggid had thousands of Chassidim, but only 60 Talmidim. And here I have the names of the 60 Talmidim that the Rebbe, that the Mezritcher Maggid. The Alter Rebbe was the youngest. Reb Nachum Shinobeler was the oldest. And all the Talmidim ate from one shizl. They ate from one pot. But the Alter Rebbe took the smetana. He took the cream of all. He was very close with the Maggid. The Maggid used to call him Zalmenu. So, and the Alter Rebbe, out of all the Talmidim, yet I have all the names here, the most hisnagdus against Chassidus was the Alter Rebbe. He was put into prison. All the Chassidim had hisnagdus. But it's not like the Alter Rebbe. Because by him it was a new inyan of Chabad, a new philosophy, different than anybody. And if you read from Rabbi Mindel, the philosophy of Chabad, which the Rebbe was also Magia, you'll see that exactly all the Hisnagdus the Alter Rebbe had. And he was one of the best Talmidim of the Magid. Now, to be a Menagid, you have to be a Menagid on something that you do. If people don't do, they're not Menagdim. Now, they don't have opposition. Let's say all the Talmidim today, Rebbes, let's say Ger, Bells, holy people. No opposition really. Because they learn, they daven. Lubavitch is different. Lubavitch is different in many ways. Farbrengenishin, Mifsoyim, Maimorim, from all the Rabbeim. How many Maimorim? Hundreds of Maimorim. You have it only in Chabad. By others you have the Noam Alamelech, you have the Sfasemis, holy books, holy Sforim. But how many do you have? You can't sit all day and learn for that. I mean, you can look shtiklach. But Chassidus Chabad is a limud, like you learn Gemara, like you learn Nigla. Bochim now Seder 3 hours a day learning Chassidus, only Chabad. So Chabad is a different type of Chassidus. And so there was a lot of Hisnagdus. Some people say it's a bit Torah, or learn that. And it's like Moshe Rabbeinu also had Hisnagdus, the Rambam had. And sometimes it's because of jealousy. When the Frierdiker Rebbe came to America, the Frierdiker Rebbe Hisnagdus, he came to America. Why? Not just to live here. America is a piece of ice. We came to break the ice of America. Your futzu meinesecha chutzo. So there was Hisnagdus. Other Rabbeim came to America to live here. This is a place to live. But there was not like Hisnagdus like to the Rebbe. Now, before I say the answer, when the Frierdiker Rebbe came to America, I just want to mention one point. There was a Godel, and that's what I heard. I did not hear it from Rabbi Mindel. I didn't hear it from my Zayde or from my father. I heard it from Tuch Sidim. So I don't know if it's true, but that's what I heard. There was a Godel. He was against what the Frierdiker Rebbe, that the release time. There is a law in New York that the public school children, they finish public school every day 3 o'clock. Wednesday, there's a law that they can go home 2 o'clock with permission of the parents, and they can have religious instructions. You can take him to shul, and we can pick him up and learn if the parents agree. That's a law in New York. So the Frierdiker Rebbe was very much for this. I mean, they're Yiddish children. They didn't go to Talmud Torah. They have a neshama. They have nothing. And there were Talmud Torahs then also, but not. And he wanted that they should go. So the Frierdiker Rebbe was masking that Bochum should close their Gemara on Wednesday in the afternoon and go and take these children to shul every Wednesday to learn with them and to teach them. You know how many hundreds, maybe thousands of Baal Tshuva became from that hour. I mean, if there's a fire burning, you close the Gemara and you go. It's not Bittul Torah. This Godel held that is Bittul Torah. You can't. As a matter of fact, the Frierdiker Rebbe wanted that from other yeshivas, Bochum should go also. And this is but they even have it today, this Wednesday hour. I'm talking, there was the biggest Hisnagdus in the Frierdiker Rebbe. So, so some Chabad Yingelite, or some Bochum, some hardheads, they wrote letters about this Godel, not the way you should write. It wasn't so nice. So this Godel called up our Rebbe. He was the Ramash then. He was in the office. And he says to the Rebbe, our Rebbe, that people that Bochum, they speak Lashon Hara on me, they make mitzoros. Because, that he was against the Frierdiker Rebbe, that he's for this release time. So the Rebbe said, the Rebbe didn't get this poll. He said, there is a medrash. The medrash says There's a medrash that if a person makes my Rebbe trouble, you can call him certain names, whatever. That's what he tells this Godel. So this Godel says to the Rebbe, no, mainly you are a Talmid Chacham, so you know this medrash. But Chassidim are not learning. He called them Amaratzim. Why? How did they know this medrash? So the Rebbe says there is a klal. Chassidim treffen zu emes. Chassidim happen to guess to the truth, to go to the truth. This I heard. I don't know if it might happen or not. I heard it from two Chassidim. So I wanted to show you that there was isnagdus all the time, because when people do, there is isnagdus. So there's isnagdus on that. So here is, and there are letters about it, but here I want to share with you a isnagdus of a person that wrote about somebody that. So he wrote like this. So Rabbi Mindel writes. I'm going to read what he wrote exactly. I was puzzled by your question about the Cadillac. As you correctly surmised, your letter explains it. But frankly, I could find more profitable use for my time than answering criticism of Lubavitch. If everything said and remored and even printed in the press were taken seriously and refuted, a full-time secretary would be required, and nothing would be gained. For usually, these critics are not interested in the truth, but only wish to criticize and find fault. I cannot, however, refuse you an answer, since you seem to be concerned and requested a reply. Then Rabbi Mindel writes to him like this. To begin with, you have conveyed to me something which you heard from someone who has heard it from someone else. Although I usually refuse to discuss hearsay, I will give you my reply in the order of your letter. Number one, he writes, I'm not aware of anyone being warned before going into the Rebbe Shlita's room for a private audience to address him as your eminence. This is absurd. And you know it from your own experience. I know, he writes, of one writer, an author, who insists on using this expression when referring to the Rebbe. But that's the writer's prerogative. The usual custom is to address the Rebbe when speaking to him in a third person. The Rebbe said, instead of you said. But this respectful manner is due to any Rav. Any older Rav, you speak like this. So what's your tanya, how you speak to the Rebbe? You speak to everybody like that. Except in modern Hebrew. It has always been the custom to use the third person when writing to anyone in Hebrew. But the Rebbe also uses this form exclusively. He also uses like that. The Rebbe also uses it. Except when writing to children. This is also my practice. In other words, Rabbi Bidal never heard of such a thing. Another thing. Not to speak before spoken to. To stand in the Rebbe's presence and then to walk backwards when leaving. People by the Rebbe, they walk backwards. He had tinus complaints on that. This is the customary way Hasidim act in the Rebbe's presence. I might add that this is in the best tradition of Jewish behavior. I presume this would be the routine when being received in audience told by the queen, because this person wrote from England. What's wrong with it? Non-Chassidim don't sit down, and some do. I sit in the Rebbe's presence only when taking dictation. But you don't have to stand, you don't have to sit. The fellow was barking up the wrong tree if he criticized this procedure. So that's what the Rabbi Mindel told about that. Number 3, I know that the Rebbe does not accept personal gifts for himself or his wife from anyone. The only exception is books, and that for his library, since it is of his public service. Checks made payable to him go to a special fund for tzedakah, for special cases, or directed to one of the institutions. But never does the Rebbe take for himself. I guess that's one of the things that he had complained. Another thing, on the question of miracles, here too, Rabbi Mindel writes, the well-known adage can be applied for him who believes no proof is necessary. For him who does not, no proof will suffice. However, some basic observations in regard to miracles are here in order. And here Rabbi Mindel answers him. This is important to know. Jews who believe in the Torah believe in miracles. Also, Jews who believe in the Talmud believe in the ability of certain men, Tanoim, to perform miracles. Another thing, many men are mentioned in the Talmud who performed miracles, and none was defied. The faculty of blessings and prayers has often been stressed in the Talmud, even of an ordinary Jew. So any Jew can bless. There are miracles and there are miracles. There are nisim and there are mofsim. Now he says, there is the miracle, Rabbi Mindel says, of turning blood into water, and vice versa, water into blood. And there is miracles of blessing come true, such as a refuah, children, bracha for money, and the like. As for the first variety, I have not heard any chassid, even the most strong, ardent, or gullible, claim that the Rebbe has performed such miracles. We never heard the Rebbe perform such miracle of tchiz hamesim or turn blood into. Nobody ever said that. It is usually the case of the Rebbe's blessing or prayer having materialized, where the person concerned believed that in the natural course of events, the outcome might have been different. Those who have experienced such miracles through the Rebbe's intercession do not have to seek a rational explanation. For as mentioned above, it is well within the realm of men, especially saintly men. Skeptics may prefer to rationalize such miracles, and it is their way of doing if they want. There is no way of preventing anyone who has been miraculously helped by the Rebbe from shouting it from the rooftops. Certainly there is no official sanction or encouragement to do so. What people say, people say. I do not know of a single instance where the Rebbe took credit for any miracles, or even alluded to it, though he receives many letters from people who inform the Rebbe how his prayer or blessings had helped them miraculously. Then the Rebbe writes, on one occasion, during a visit by a group of students, when asked point blank if it were true that he can help people in a miraculous way, the Rebbe replied that any Jew who is a shomer Torah mitzvahs is capable of performing such miracles by virtue of his attachment to the giver of the Torah and mitzvahs. He used the analogy of turning on a light by the flip of a finger, whereby contact is made with the essential power station, which is the source of his modern miracle. Incidentally, the kind of miracles attributed to the Rebbe have been attributed to other saintly men. I mean Rabbonim, not merely Rebbes, including the Vilna Gaon, because this person was a chassid of the Vilna Gaon. So it's not only the Rebbe. So what, in other words, why are you complaining? Then, as for attaching a godly image to the Rebbe, and often repeated criticism by Misnagdim, it is really a matter of semantics. We have all been created in the image of God, and therefore have godly images. Certainly the Jew who is more closely attached to God, and constantly so, has more of a godlike image than the Jew who is not so close. If the charge is that the Rebbe is defied, I cannot imagine any greater, he wrote, stupidity. Even Moshe Rabbeinu was never deified. He was never deified. And I cannot imagine even the stupidest chassid being guilty of such idolatry. It has a place in Christian dogma, but not in Judaism, especially not in Chabad. Now, there's another letter that somebody writes to the Rebbe, this is not here, about that he heard that the Rebbe Rashab said that a Rebbe is a lakus dressed in a body. That's something, and Rabbi Midel answers there very sharp, which every Yid has a neshama, especially a Rebbe, that's something else. But this is the answer to this person. Now, I need hardly point out that neither the Rebbe nor his wife is showy in any way, shape or form. Not only do they not travel first class, because this person had a China of traveling of a Cadillac, it would be no crime if they did. But they do not travel, period. In my association with the present Rebbe, for nearly, then it was 30 years, he has not taken a vacation for a single day. Do you ever see a Rebbe not take a vacation? Nor has he left Crown Heights section of Brooklyn. I believe his wife made one trip abroad, but I do not know if she traveled first class, heaven forbid. Now for the celebrated Cadillac, a Cadillac, Rabbi Mindel says, is by far not the most expensive car in the USA. Every person drives a Cadillac in the USA, even the lowest class. Perhaps a Rolls-Royce is. A Cadillac is more often bought here for its performance rather than for prestige. If it is a luxury, it is probably the only one that Rebbetzin can be accused of. It so happens that she is rather petite, and it is the most comfortable for her to drive. I should know because I went with her to buy her first Cadillac. She insisted on subdued colors. You see, she has no private chauffeurs to drive around. So he had a complaint about that. Now, so in other words, the criticism that he had, okay, nothing you will say will convince those who delight in criticism of this kind. As for the innocent bystander, you can only tell him, don't believe everything you see and believe nothing you hear. And then he says, he knows, Rabbi Mendel knows this person, and he gives him a bracha. He wasn't feeling well, so he ends off here. I think that you should, if you want a nes, if you want a miracle, if you want to be well, you should write to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe will give you a bracha, and I'm sure the Rebbe give you a bracha, you will be well. Now in the future, I will share with you more letters of the Rebbe's answer to people that criticize the Rebbe about me, Yehudi. They criticize about the Shtochim. They criticize the Rebbe about many things, about Farbringen. The way the Rebbe Farbringen is a lot of, and the Rebbe answers everyone. I don't think these letters are public, but maybe I'll say it online. Mitzvah, next week we'll continue our weekly program. Thank you.